The Russian army broke through to Sudzha, the Ukrainian armed forces' defense on the Kursk front has collapsed, and Velyka Novosilka is already encircled. Good day, dear friends. Here, we analyze the situation on the front lines daily, examining maps, assessing advances or retreats, and making predictions about how certain events might impact the overall situation on the front. Before we begin, I sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. By subscribing, you support its growth. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. Currently, the Russian army is advancing on various fronts. For example, in the Kharkiv region, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced yesterday that the village of Lozovaya is now under its control. In the area of Velyka Novosilka, the village of Storozhevoy, which had been contested for the past week, has also come under Russian control. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces are attempting counterattacks in the Zaporizhzhia region near the village of Kamenske, achieving limited success with advances of just a few hundred meters. However, the most intense fighting is now taking place in the Kursk region, and the reasons are clear. Whether negotiations occur or not, the likelihood of talks is high. As such, Russian command has prioritized fully pushing Ukrainian forces out of the Kursk region before these negotiations begin. Today, we will discuss in detail what is happening there, as the situation has effectively entered the third phase of counteroffensive operations. Let's open the maps and analyze the events. As I mentioned, we are now witnessing the third phase of counteroffensive actions. About a week and a half ago, the front was relatively static, with limited advances. However, significant progress is now being recorded daily as the Russian army conducts offensives on multiple fronts. Let me list them, and then we will delve into the details. The main areas of action are as follows: Nikolaeva Darina, Leonidovka, Nikolaevka, Pogrebki, Kurilovka, and Makhnovka. Intense battles are ongoing in all these locations, though the Russian army has not achieved success on all of them. Nonetheless, most are seeing Russian advances, and I will examine each movement, even if it spans only a few hundred meters. Let's move on to the details. The area near Nikolaeva Darina has seen prolonged fighting for the village of Darina itself. The Russian army ultimately succeeded in capturing the village and has since advanced toward the next target, a neighboring village just 1 kilometer away. This distance was covered relatively quickly, with Russian assault troops reaching the outskirts of Nikolaeva Darina and securing its eastern section. However, the fighting there has stalled, and battles for the village, which had a pre-war population of about 150 people, have been ongoing for nearly 2 weeks. The situation is different in the neighboring area, where the Russian army has made notable progress. The village of Novoivanovka has been fully secured by Russian forces. Furthermore, they have advanced to Leonidovka, where initial skirmishes have already been recorded in the northwest part of the village. Leonidovka holds strategic importance due to its location on key routes leading toward Viktorovka and Sverdlikovo. In particular, Russian forces are also advancing toward the road to Viktorovka from a separate position. They captured the village of Kruglenkoye in just 2 days, and then proceeded to push in 3 directions. One toward Nikolaevka, a neighboring village, another toward the road leading to Viktorovka, and a third toward Stara Sorochina. The main objective in this area is not the villages themselves, but cutting off the road connecting Pogrebki and Malaya Loknya. The goal is to isolate Ukrainian forces in Pogrebki from the main body of their troops. Intense assaults are ongoing in Pogrebki itself, but have yet to yield significant results. Now let's move south to the Kursk region, where significant changes occurred yesterday. The focus here is the Kurilovka area, where Russian troops crossed the Sudzha River, advancing a full kilometer and entering Kurilovka. Importantly, this involves not just capturing a few houses, but securing the entire southeastern part of the village. This development is critical because, if the entirety of Kurilovka is taken and a stable bridgehead is established beyond the Psel and Suja rivers, the Ukrainian armed forces garrison in Suja itself will face serious problems. This would effectively encircle the Ukrainian grouping and cut off the road, paving the way for further advances directly from Kurilovka. Additionally, it is important to understand that the advance towards Suja is also taking place from the direction of Cherkasskaya Konopelka, which is now entirely under Russian control. From there, the movement is currently proceeding in 2 directions. The first is toward the outskirts of Makhnovka, via the road here, and from Makhnovka to Sudzha, it's only a couple of kilometers. The second direction is along this highway toward Mirnoye. From Mirnoye, there's a direct road to Sudzha, just about 1.5 kilometers away. This creates a situation where advancing directly from Mirnoye to Sudzha would provide one route of approach, while simultaneously blocking it from the east. If simultaneous advances occur from three directions, Kurilovka, Makhnovka, and Mirnoye, it would result in Sudzha being encircled on three sides, leaving the only exit route for Ukrainian forces to retreat westward into Sumy Oblast. It is evident that the Russian command in the Kursk region is employing a tactic similar to that used by General Mordvichev in the Donetsk region on the Pokrovskoye and Kurakovo fronts. Instead of storming settlements head-on, the tactic involves encirclement from multiple sides, creating a semi-encirclement initially. If the Ukrainian grouping remains in place, it leads to a full encirclement, as seen south of Kurakovo. The same approach is being implemented here, not attacking Sudzha directly, but surrounding it in a semicircle, leaving one escape route. If that route isn't used, the city will be fully blocked. Overall, the situation for the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region has taken a sharply negative turn over the past few days. Previously, even a 100-meter advance was difficult for Russian forces, but now, for several consecutive days, advances in certain areas have exceeded a kilometer per day. This progress is primarily observed near Kruglenkoye and Kurilovka. That concludes today's analysis of the situation in the Kursk region. Let's move on to the Velyka Novosilka direction, where significant events are unfolding. Here, Russian armed forces units achieved critical successes yesterday, which could force the enemy to abandon the Velyka Novosilka area in the foreseeable future without significant fighting over the village itself. The key developments occurred west of the Mokria Yali River, on the hills. Russian assault units managed to capture several of the enemy's key defensive positions and physically reached the Huliai-Poli-Velyka Novosilka highway, with only a few hundred meters remaining. Additionally, the village of Storozhevoy has been captured by Russian forces, and progress has been made on the hills toward Neskuchnoye and Vremiivka. To secure full control of these locations, Russian forces need to take one final position, already within reach. Once that happens, both villages will be exposed and easily monitored. It will then only be a matter of time before they fall under Russian control, which would seal the fate of Velyka Novosilka. Tactical successes have also been reported in the Novo-Komar area, where Russian forces are expanding their zone of control. Effectively, just one final push remains to encircle the area completely. There is a possibility that Ukrainian forces will begin to withdraw gradually, as the threat of full encirclement looms on the horizon. Tabri, Pokrovsk direction as of December 23rd. Near Udaknoe, fighting is ongoing along the Novovasilievka-Solinoe-Volki line. Based on reports from this triangle of villages, it appears the Ukrainian armed forces faced significant difficulties yesterday. Russian units, building on previously secured positions south of Volchi, advanced further and initiated battles in the villages of Solinoe and Volchi. This significantly expanded their foothold beyond the last line of defense on the way to Udaknoe and Kotlino. The response forces of the 425th Skala Assault Battalion are clearly insufficient to stabilize the situation. Moreover, Russian armed forces achieved tactical success yesterday north of Dachenko, where they are advancing toward the Tunishino railway station. Without deploying new, high-quality reserves here, not just another batch of low-tier troops from second-rate brigades, the front line in this area will not remain relatively stable for long. Let's move on to the Lyman direction, where very interesting news is emerging from the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainian military, in a panic, reported that the Russian armed forces attacked the key village of Terny near Lyman and Seversk, and even took control of its center. The situation in Terny is dire. Over the past week, it has significantly deteriorated. The village, which was already destroyed, has now been completely demolished by KABs, leaving virtually no place to hold positions, said a Ukrainian armed forces officer with the call sign Alex. He complained that the forecast is not very encouraging, as Russian forces are deploying a large number of new troops into the settlement. Terny is very important to us because its control determines the fate of the entire Seversk direction. Without exaggeration, the Ukrainian officer added. Slightly further north, confirmation arrived yesterday that Russian forces had captured the village of Lozovo and made significant advances toward the settlement of Boguslavka. It seems this front has also become active, and it's evident that the Ukrainian armed forces lack sufficient reserves everywhere to hold the front line. North of Kupiansk, reports indicate that Russian forces have advanced toward the center of the village of Dvorichne. From the Toretsk direction, footage of objective control has emerged, showing Ukrainian forces striking advancing Russian assault units. The Russian armed forces have effectively reached the last Ukrainian stronghold in this city, the Toretsk mine. With the fall of this stronghold, the fate of Toretsk will be sealed, and the Ukrainian armed forces will be forced to withdraw their troops from the area.